screen 2. This seems different than last time.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but we are at the bottom of the hour.
Okay, it is not letting me. Should I not be using Firefox?
I can only get in with Firefox.
For me,
using Firefox? Using Firefox, but it's not letting me publish my screen.
It says now new screen's been shared. Screen sharing has started.
Are you seeing anything?
No, it just says it's being started and shows 0K, and then it dies. We're using the publish screen. Lenny, is that what you're trying?
Yes, I'm trying, and I have a feeling it might have to do with, it may be complaining about my, all right, let's see if this does it.
We have a chat panel. Is there audio? Yes, there is.
I may have to drop for a second here.
Okay.
To allow this to happen.
Corliss says use Chrome. So if you're jumping on, we're waiting for Lenny to come back. He's having issues with screen sharing and made the jump to Chrome, so he should be right back here.
Okay,
I hear Lenny.
Slowly but surely coming back here. Now I will try to, aha, there we go. Okay. All right.
Beautiful.
I think I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Did we get a chance to?
I requested before the 30 and heard nothing, so let's try again. Let's start with the intro, note well, and we'll jump into the request.
Okay. All right. Now, whenever I switch to presentation mode, it hijacks my whole screen. Can you guys see this? Is this okay?
I see it. Everyone else see it? Okay. Hands up or something, or?
All right. So let's get started. Welcome to MBONED.
So looks like Sandy can hear us now. So let's see. Let's see if she can do notes for us.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We can.
Oh, finally. You know, I can't hear anything during the last meeting. So I will try to take the notes. Okay. But for backup, if Jake will take the notes, it's better. I will take notes when he is present. Okay. And I will also.
So you guys will split?
Okay. Okay.
Got it.
I just afraid I will lost because the network is not stable. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so there it is.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Jake. All right, so tag team, we got that covered. All right, Lenny, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so let's get started. Here's the note well. Please note it well. It's been up for a while. Standard note well. All right, here's our agenda. We have a packed agenda today, probably the busiest agenda we've had in years. And not a lot of time. So these are the items we plan to cover. Anybody want to bash this agenda? Anything to add, subtract, multiply, divide? Okay. All right, let's move on to the status of active working group docs. Since last we met, since 108, the deprecate ASM draft has been published as RFC 8815. So we're happy to have that there, and it's it's been actually applied as a BCP in Internet 2 already. So that's having an impact. The Multicast Problems draft, that's been sitting in IETF last call for a while. There were several discusses, and it looks like Mike just updated that. Mike, do you want to give a very brief mention about what on the updates on that one?
Yeah, so Alyssa and a couple other actually ADs mentioned a whole list of things that we needed to change. It kind of was a depressing amount of discussions actually, so we kind of just stopped working on it for quite a while. But recently got motivated to just get it done, and so I addressed all of Alyssa's comments. We're just waiting for her response. She said she'll get next week, and then the next two sets of discussions are actually manageable, so we'll get them done. We are proud of this draft, and we keep being told that it's a good draft, but we just need to make it so that it fit the different areas, like transport area, and others are satisfied with things that are confusing to them. So we'll get it. We haven't given up, and we will get it done, and I'm confident that by next IETF it will all be done.
Okay. And the changes are not massively substantive. It's more clarifying, so we don't necessarily need to run another working group last call, or what do you think?
That's right. That's correct. It's just a lot of people are not familiar with multicast. A lot of people are not familiar with Wi-Fi, and this draft addresses both. And so we have to just kind of not make assumptions that people know what certain things mean. And so we have to expand it and just explain things a little bit more.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Thanks, Mike. The Yang models draft is active. Sandy's going to provide an update on that one later. The other active drafts are the multicast to the browser drafts, AMBC back in dorms. Jake's going to cover those. And other docs, Jake has a MNAT draft, which he's going to cover as well, and the Ingest failover draft, and that will be covered as well today. So, and by Yishang. So that's the agenda. First up on the agenda was Jake. So Jake, two things. Jake, I got your multicast to the browser drafts slides. Did you send something for MNAT?
Oh, I combined them because you said you were combining the slides.
Okay.
So they're
it's all in one. Yeah. Okay, great. Cool. Now, would you like to drive, or do you want me to drive? And you tell me to advance.
Why don't you drive? I haven't tried the screen share from here. And
you guys sharing up
I'm
already.
sure I've closed everything. Yeah.
All right. I shall bring that up.
If you can, I can find it if you need me to.
I got it. It kicked me out in order to get Firefox to let me present, and now that I am oops. All right, there it is.
Yeah, so I framed the slides as an update on our Multicast to the browser project, of which all three of the currently adopted drafts that are listed there are already a part, but also the MNAT is driven by the same project. So I just kind of combined them together. So that's what I'll be going over when we get there.
Okay, this was.
Oh, and I guess I can say my name too. I'm Jake Holland. Supposed to do that still, right?
Looks like it's hanging up again, Lenny.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, we had the screen being shared notification, and then it went back to the.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring it's a PDF and move it into it. You're not seeing the screen, are you?
Should I give it a try then?
If you can.
It might be better if you try.
I don't know how this works, but it might make things even worse. Who knows?
Yes, things have changed since last.
Do you really want to share your screen? Yes, I will try it. Does that show up?
No, we're still waiting. It says it's being started.
Let me take one more shot at this. Can you unshare, Jake?
Yeah.
Unpublish your screen there.
Oh, we got it. There's a screen.
You got it.
We got it.
It did work. All right. And does that show in presentation mode?
Perfectly.
This works. Go for it.
This works. Okay, so we're there. We'll do it. All right. So hi, I'm Jake. What I'll be going over is updates about our Multicast to the browser project since I last presented on it at IETF 108. We have several trials in progress. The browser API implementation is coming along. Not everywhere we want it to be yet, but getting there. Doc status and next steps for a few things where I think the docs are ready to take some actions. And then I'll be spending probably about half the time, if I can, on the new Multicast Nat draft. I'll go over a little bit of why I'm doing it, what I'm hoping to achieve with it, and then how it works and what it does, and then pause for discussion on next steps. So the trials, we've got 8 ISP partners that have signed on to who've agreed to do testing with us and to try this stuff out, plus a number of content owners that are geo-relevant that will be making sure that their content is something that we're able to transport properly. We were aiming to wrap things up this year, which I think with a couple of the partners we might do who've already started. With some of the ones that are still waiting to start, we are extending into the next quarter. That might be going as late as March, but we're hoping to be all done with our sort of initial examination trials by then. The structure of the trials, at least phase 1, is lab testing. What they're going to be doing is setting up the Multicast Ingest platform that we published. We've talked about that before. That's running essentially a Dryad-based AMT gateway system that uses Dryad to ingest global traffic according to the SGs that we've got, and then also we'll be applying the CBAC logic to ensure that the traffic stays within boundaries. That'll be attached to the piece are using. At the access router point, which would be just deploying the ingest platform at access routers where they want the traffic to be multicasted across that access. So depending on their deployment plans for this, if it serves their needs, then they'll be testing it in both of those ways. The traffic that we'll be running is we have these are both still proprietary at this point. They're essentially kind of the same thing as Flute, but not actually Flute because it's not encoded in the same way. But it's using FEC based stuff for essentially reliable multicast delivery. And we've got implementations of both of these, so they'll be running those to make sure that the traffic, as we intend to deploy it, is going to, that it's plausible that it will serve the needs that they have. So for that, we're still trying to get like the right level of engagement with some of the game downloaders, which we think has driven a lot of the interest in this. Everybody recognizes that those big video game downloads has become a strain on the network for a lot of cases. And the live video also is still of interest, but the game downloads we do think is a critical component of this. And we basically got some survey questions that we'll be asking them to answer, and it's an evaluation of CBAC and the overall viability of the system. The question we're looking to get answered is whether the ISPs would actually deploy this if we were running production traffic that could be reached in this way and had it deployed at scale. And that will inform our decision of whether to commit all the resources to this to turn it into a real production system. Right now, it's all still kind of prototypey. It's a little questionable to call it suitable for production, but with that said, we are looking still to do possibly an A/B production test using some real traffic from a real content provider. If we have any content providers that end up signing on to this, and network operators that think it's reasonable enough to try it, we think this is somewhat plausible because our video system that we've got will transparently work over unicast if it can't do the multicast. So that's sort of a critical component of this whole architecture. We're still looking to possibly do that, but we won't know for at least a few months whether we intend to go forward with a production test at this time or not. Some of the ISPs, depending how you count, 2 or 3 of them, are going to need the MNAT thing in order to run this first pass at the trial for some reason, or I should say, are going to need something that solves the problems that MNAT solves. Whether it's MNAT as I'm writing it up or not is not necessarily clear yet, but that's part of why I'm working out the prototype to actually try it out for those trials and see if it meets their needs. And we've also been digging through our log line, our logs of the actual traffic that we send in production to try and estimate like how much of a gain are we going to get out of this, and that should hopefully, in some anonymized sense, we'll try to present the results of that analysis at an upcoming meeting, probably in March or July. But that's sort of the outline of what we're doing with the trials and how they stand now. There have been 2 partners that have actually set up the Multicast Ingest platform in lab and are currently engaged in trying to hook it up to their systems and get it transported all the way through their CPEs. I haven't heard yet whether any of them have succeeded at that yet. They've got like a few hops working fine, but are still working through all the challenges in working with the rest of their stack. So the are still just we're a link to the repo there. It's not yet in the Chromium Canary, but we're trying to get a dev trial started this month, which should put it into the Chromium Canary, which would be accessible through a command line flag or like the the Chrome flags page where you can turn on experimental features. They've actually updated that process recently, and we think it's actually going to be helpful for making that happen. But that felt a little stalled until we were looking at what it's going to take to start that, and we were trying to get the right engagement to get that to actually begin and get our code checked into Chromium now. There's still a whole lot of work to do though, and so we won't be able to do an origin trial. Probably, like if we're in that position by July, I'd be really happy, but it might even be, it might take longer than that, because we're definitely, before we can do an origin trial, we're going to have to solve Ambi and probably do the tag review, which is, I'm expecting will be a bit of a grind and take some back and forth. So, and might have impact on what we do with the docs. So the docs that we have here, I recently posted an update to dorms and CBAC and Ambi, but the Ambi one was not very extensive. So I think dorms right now has all the known TBDs and feedback done. I added the missing IANA stuff and checked it against the Yang guidelines that resulted in some changes. So right now, from the working group, we're looking for a Yang doctor review to begin. I think it's a reasonable and appropriate time. If there's changes that come out of that, then it would be good to get that, as soon as we can. Not clear whether the changes, if they happen, would go into our trials, or whether they'd be sort of follow up afterwards and just make a claim that we believe it can be equivalent. We're also, we think it's a good time to do a request for early allocation of the service name dorms for IANA, if we think this is the way it'll go. And I also had a question about whether to request a cluster for the dorms, CBAC, and Ambi drafts, which are CBAC and Ambi are built on top of dorms as an extension. So, and then the CBAC updates. Likewise, most of the TBDs are finished. There's a couple remaining that are there in the drafts, in that draft. But one of the things we had was to request a review from the transport area about the circuit breaker behavior. They being the experts on what circuit breakers should do and stuff. And then I'm not sure whether we want to do the Yang doctor review of CBAC at the same time as dorms with the sort of joint Yang doctor review, or whether we should do the dorms one first, and then that will obviously, if there are changes, drive changes to CBAC as well. So I guess, should we discuss that now, or should we bring that up after? I can pause here for.
First, do we have our AD here? Is Warren? I'm not seeing Warren in the list. Is Warren in? Yeah. So why don't we continue on with the updates, and then at the end, kind of see what we should.
Okay, that works for me.
Next. I see there's a question. Wait, hold on. There's a question from Robert. How do I add him?
Is my audio coming through?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I don't see Warren here either. But in terms of the Yang doctor review, I would suggest it'd be easier to put them through together. and request the same person review both of them, presuming there's quite a lot of content and context shared between the two, it'll make it an easier job for the reviewer to understand both of them at the same time and give more appropriate feedback. So that's my recommendation.
That makes good sense to me. Thank you. All right. So I will. Anyway, so Multicast Nat. During the course
And you're
of,
thinking, by the way, you're thinking early review. I assume there's different stages of Yang review.
I put a link in the slides to the page that describes what the request looks like. There's so yeah, please, I guess if you can take a look at that and let's follow up with any questions you've got for me about it. Like I don't have anything to add to what that document says for how we should do the Yang Doctor request, I think. But I think it's just a matter of like, I'm not sure if there's a button in the data tracker or if you send an email. I think they had a mailing list where the request goes, perhaps, but it was supposed to come from the chairs, I think it said. So if you agree that these docs seem ready to move to that stage, then I would be grateful for their feedback at the earliest chance we can get. Yeah. Sure. All right. So if there's nothing else about those docs and the actions there, then I'll move on to Multicast Nat. So during the course of trying to arrange all the trials that we've been trying to arrange for the evaluation of our architecture for the external ingest of external traffic into an ISP and delivery to their end users, there were several different stoppers that were brought up along the way for. So some of the networks were satisfied that we might be able to address some of these stoppers during the trials, and would like to go forward with something that tries to address those stoppers and see if we can go ahead and get Multicast to work for them. Others of the ISPs we talked to, declined to participate in the trials, citing some of these issues as reasons that they don't think it's plausible at this time to do anything with it, that there's no point in them trying to adopt it now. But the hope is really to change their minds at some stage and make it so that Multicast becomes ubiquitous. But we think there's going to be essentially an adoption curve. No matter how we slice it, people are going to be incrementally adopting this if it does move forward. But our goal in this work is to end up with ubiquitous deployment at some point, where networks that haven't got around to it yet are going to sort of be increasingly realizing that they're missing out on something that's working for other people. That's kind of the way I see this playing out, assuming we don't hit a wall somewhere. But the issues that were cited that came up during the course of trying to set these trials up are listed here. There are several different cases. There's been some discussion of that on the list. Thank you, Lenny. I hope that's helped to clarify some of these issues, and I am aware I'll try to get that into the draft if we do anything with this draft about MNAT. So hopefully that's reasonably clear about the problems that I encountered. And the reason I went with MNAT is that I noticed that all the problems that I did encounter could be addressed by this one neat trick of just putting my multicast traffic into a different address space while it's within the network that has some special restrictions, right? So that's really what drove the work on this. The way that it works is written up in the draft. I hope a couple of people have gotten a chance to read it. hopefully. I'd be happy to take comments and stuff. But the basic idea is that there's an ingress and an egress. At the ingress, you translate into an address space that, so you take the external SG and you translate it into an address space that works within the local network. And that address space that works within the local network, it might be but in general, of those groups that are local within the network is managed by an external service, and that service is a centrally located HTTP API, essentially, and the egress and the ingress are both talking to that service to find out what that mapping looks like. And then the ingress just, you know, at the ingress point, there's a translation of, because we know that within this network we have subscribers to an external global SG, we're going to, you know, do something to propagate the ingest of that traffic into the network, and then we're going to change it into the addresses that are appropriate for this network according to whatever the MNAT service told us. And likewise at the egress, we're going to be taking information about, we know that there are clients that want to do a join of the global SG. We're going to report that to the MNAT service and ask them if there's a translation that should be performed. And then we'll be signing up to receive the locally mapped addresses that are appropriate for within this network, and then turn that back into the global SG before passing it on. And then one of the neat tricks about this is that with an HTTP API, we could run the egress all the way in the client app itself or in the OS for the client app, so that outside of the device, it just looks like the client is trying to subscribe to, you know, the perhaps the star G that makes sense for within this network. But the client knows that subscribing to that star G, what it really means is it's referring to traffic that comes from the global SG, and it can treat it accordingly. And it can do the things like the authentication with AMBI that's based on the global SG that is, you know, looked up in the global SG according to the DNS that comes from the global source, and apply those that authentication, for example, to the payloads that it's receiving in the locally assigned star G, or whatever it is that's been locally assigned. And one of the key reasons I'm trying to do it this way, I think there might be a few other ways to approach it, but this seemed the simplest to me. And one of the things that you get out of this is that there's not an upgrade to the CPE devices, which is quite expensive for some of the ISPs. Like, in general, they are willing to do things that improve their efficiency, but they're not willing to do like a major sort of greenfield rollout, right? And which makes perfect sense. It's in line with how their finances are run, right? So by running something potentially as deep as inside the app, you can really dodge a lot of the need for new equipment. All you need to deploy is a new service somewhere that's discoverable within the network, and then that new service needs to be standardized enough that you can communicate all the signaling about what this translation for the local network should be. The way I propose to do the discovery in the draft is with DNSSD. You can also do it by configuration, because sometimes the dumb access points also aren't going to be able to pass the search domain that you need to use DNSSD. But that's the basic outline of what it's trying to accomplish and why. I guess, so I've got an early prototype. I really should say almost running. It's not doing the full end-to-end translation yet, but it is doing most of the back and forth signaling. It's using an updated Yang model that's different from what's in the draft, but I'll be posting that soon. I'll be posting the code that goes with this prototype implementation. And my real question is whether this is suitable for MBOND adoption and whether the MBOND participants think that we should do so. There's one caveat about suitability that maybe I should raise. I looked at the charter for MBOND and it did say that group management protocols are out of scope. I'm not sure whether this qualifies as a group management protocol because the egress does report to the central service. But it's not passing that, it's not replacing IGMP in that the next hop router still gets told through IGMP or MLD about the group management for the traffic within the local network. So
I think we're fully in the clear here, Jake.
Okay, great.
I mean, because really we're talking about is IGMP. We didn't want to modify the stack. If you look historically where group management was, it was at the stack, right? So we're totally clear.
Okay, so, you know, when you call it a group management protocol, I mean, there is some group management reporting, but it's doing it to a centralized service. So there's a little bit of a difference there. But I just wanted to raise that as a possible thing that needs discussing. But outside that, I don't see any reason that it's not in scope for MBOND. And I hope it's useful, but I'd be willing to take comments on that point. And that's all I got.
It's not modifying the IGMP or PIM or MLD, right?
Nope, nothing.
Yeah. So I would say that it's not creating a new group membership protocol. It's really just using those. So and mapping with those. So I don't think that it would be I agree with Greg there.
I think this is a great piece. I mean, it's clearly part of the puzzle, and the feedback you got directly from operators showing these are the gaps, and that you solve them with a single clever tool is fantastic. So I support adoption. We need to take it to the list here or the room here right now. I'll try the tool, see how this works.
Great.
I'll call it MNAT. Look at that. Start a session. There it is. Raise your hand. Do not raise your hand, participants. That's, raise your hand if you think it should be adopted.
Do I get to vote on this?
Yes, you do. Isn't that a cool tool?
Is the raising the hand the same as the queue, join queue?
No, there's difference. So there's the queue on the left, but the next toolbar down, you've got the participant list, you've got the chat via panel, and you got the show of hands tool.
Oh, show of hands tool.
I see.
All right.
Got it.
All right. I think we're there. 11 of 23 come in. We have no dissent. All right. We'll take it to the list for adoption. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. That is it then. So back to you guys.
Great. All right, next up is Yishang on the multicast redundancy ingress.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We hear you.
Should I share my screen, or you can help me?
Can you try yours?
Okay.
And if it doesn't work, I had it working with PowerPoint slides, but PDF.
Okay. I have sent the request of the share screen. How?
I'm not seeing it yet.
Yeah, it says you have to accept the request, but I'm not seeing the request come through. Are you seeing a request to accept?
Yeah,
Lenny?
I have sent the request of.
Yeah, but Lenny, do you see it? I don't see it. I don't know where
Yeah,
I'm looking for.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's in the queue panel. Where's the
Yeah.
queue panel? Join queue. It's in the queue panel.
Yeah. Yeah, I have said the screen requested in the queue.
Oh, up there, queue. Valerie, countdown, take note, meeting, start, settings, leave room. On top of the participant list.
All right. Let me see if maybe I can do this.
You have to scroll to the top participants list. There it is. Grant screen. That was probably the mistake we were making before. Wait for that to come up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we get it. I love the recursive view that pops up first. That's
Okay.
fantastic.
Can you see the slides?
Yes, we see them. Excellent. Go right ahead.
Okay. I'm Yisung Liu from China Mobile, and today I will represent the multicast redundant ingress router failover. This is the first presentation of this draft. Firstly, I will introduce the concept of this draft, the multicast domain and the IR and ER. And the multicast domain means that forward multicast flow according to the specific multicast technologies, like PIM, BEER, P2MP, MPLS, etc. This domain may or may not connect the multicast source and the receiver directly. And the IR means the ingress router, and the ER means the egress router. That it means that in the multicast domain, that it may or may not connect the source or receiver directly, but it's the most adjacent router to the source or the receiver in the multicast domain. The next, I will introduce the redundant ingress router failover. A multicast source connected to IRs in order to avoid single node failure. In this draft, the single node, the IR's failure means that the IR node failure and the IR to ER's path failure. And the two IRs are all UMH candidates for the ERs. In case the IR who is in charge of forwarding flows, or when it fails, or the parse from the IR to the ER fails, and it cannot be recovered, and the forwarding IR is switched over, like IR2 to the IR1 to the IR2, and for different multicast technologies like PIM or BEER or P2MP MPLS, different functions used to build a tree or a subtree to to build a tree wholly or partially. Next, here is the example, and the IR1 is a SIR. SIR means the selected IR, and IR1 and RX are the key nodes. Key nodes means that when IR1 and the RX fails, there is no any other path between the IR1 to the ERs and the ER1, ER2, ER3. It's the key nodes to the IR1 for all of the ERs. And like PIM or RM and RN can choose the IRY as the upstream node to send a join message and to build a new tree, which rooted at the IR2, and the same as the MLDP, it can send the label mapping message. And for the BEER, the IR2 should forward to the ERs to encapsulate the bit string. For the P2MP RSVPTE, it should be rebuild the RSP or the sub RSP to replace the old one from the IR1. And we have 3 types of the standby modes. The first is the cold standby. Cold standby means that ER selects IR as the selected SIR, and signals to the SIR to get the multicast flow. When the ER finds the SIR is down or the parse is broken, and the ER signals the BIR, the backup IR. That's the cold standby. The second mode is the warm standby. Warm standby means that the ER signals both the IR, and the SIR forwards the flow to the ER, and the BIR must not forward the flow unless the SIR fails. And the third mode is the hot standby. Hot standby means that ER signals both IRs. Both IRs send the flow to the ER, and the ER must discard the duplicated flow. And in this situation, IR does not distinguish the SIR or BR row. For the 3 types of the mode, we can have a comparison of that. The first is the IR row. For the cold standby, the IR row forwards the flow according to the request from the ER. And for the warm standby, it will take the row of SIR or BIR. And also the BIR must not forward flow to the IR until the SIR fails. And in the hot standby, the IR need not to know the rows of the SIR or BIR. It's both a forwarding flow according to the request from ER. For the ER row in cold standby, it must select an IR as SR to signal the flow request, and it also signal to the BIR to request the flow when the SR fails. And in the warm standby mode, the ER does not select the SR or BIR, just a signal to both of them. And in the hot standby, it will discard the duplicate flow from BIR until the SIR fails. And for the regular router in the multicast domain, it doesn't need to know about the SR or BIR. For the same router, the cold standby and the warm standby mode, no duplicated flow is forwarded. And maybe in some situation, duplicated flow maybe is forwarded in the same router. And we have some consideration about the 3 types of the mode. That is the cold standby is the easiest way to implement it, but it will take the longest conversion time. In warm standby, it will take the middle packet loss and the conversion time, but it's hard for the BIR to know the failure between the SIR and the ERs. It means that it's a little difficult for the BIR to know the parse from the SIR to ER. And for the hot standby, it will take the most less packet loss, but the duplicated packet forwarding in the domain, so more bandwidth is occupied. The next step, we will welcome to more comments or questions. Thanks. That's all. Hello?
Great. So, yes, Jake.
Talk.
Hi. Thanks for writing this up. I think it's kind of interesting, but I'm a little confused. Like, what is the goal for this document? Like, it almost seems like it wants to be a BCP, but it's informational and just sort of covers what people do. Is that the idea?
It's provided the general consideration for the multicast ingress router failure deployment, and here in the draft, which mode the network should take, and we think that it depends on the specific network deployment, and it depends on the choice of the network administrator.
All right. I guess I did read this document, and I was trying to figure out, like, if you're running PIM, can you do anything besides a cold failover, or is this like, how does there were some assumptions I did not follow about the way the signaling would work, I guess. And I'm not sure if the plan is to clarify that, or you're looking for feedback on the list about the doc, or like, what is the I'm not sure where this doc is going. Like, who's the main audience, and what are they intended to do with it, I guess.
Okay, we can discuss the detailed.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. We would love to talk more, but unfortunately, we have 2 more presentations in 9 minutes, and they cut things off. So if we could take this to the list. Are you, Yishang, are you? I assume you're seeking working group adoption.
Not this time.
In MBONED. No, okay. Or you just want a discussion? Okay. All right, so let's take the discussion to the list. Sorry, Stig and Sandy. We have to move on for the. We're running short of time here.
Oh, okay. Should I cancel the share?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sandy, are you able to share? For some reason, I'm having trouble getting PDFs to work.
I can share the screen.
Yes, I just granted you.
I will try.
There you go.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'd like
And you
to
have
do a very short.
and again, you have 5 minutes, Sandy. Sorry.
Okay. I will do a very short presentation. This is about the multicast young data model update. From the draft, we know that there's no significant modification in version 00202. And in the update of the version 03 and 04, we made big changes. But the main modification is about the editorial modification according to RFC 8407. And we add more description in the model to help the reader understanding the model. Okay, this is the major update of the draft. And the later is wanted to recall some memory or attention on this draft. Because the time limit, I wanted to present this content, but you can read it from it. Okay, that's all. Thanks. We'd like to request more comments and reviews before working group last call. Thanks.
So Sandy, this had previously gone to the Yang doctor review, right? And there was feedback.
Yes.
And I assume you've updated it based on that feedback.
Yes,
Okay.
I had done the modification according to the young doctor's review. But I think they need review it again, because different young doctors may have different suggestion on it. So maybe it need more review and comments. Yeah. Because when this draft goes into working group last call, the young doctor will review it again. So before that, I'd like more people to review it and give us comments about the model itself. And the young doctor will give me the program suggestion for the structure or some programmer, something else. Yes, so we'd like to make this draft technology and the grammar is all good for it. Yeah.
Great. Jake?
This is Jake again. If I remember right from the discussion, this document is already in production and deployed in a number of places, right? Are there any reports from them where it's deployed, or the implementations where it's in use?
We have the implementation for it, and this project is open for everyone, and because it's in open daylight, and in our controller product, it also be used to manage the multicast service. Yeah. So, but we know that they are only partial of the only part of the draft model has been verified, and maybe some some part of the young model has not been verified. So we like more review on it. Yeah.
Can you identify which parts are which? Like which parts are like really? Could you maybe send something about that to the list, like sort of which parts have been exercised in production or by the way it's used in products extensively, and which parts really need more digging or more examination?
So yes, because you see there's many parts in this model, and some we know that there's many options for the multicast deployment, such as overlay. You will see MVPN, UVPN, BGP, or something else, and in transporter we may choose beer, pin, or other things. So we needn't define the detail of this model because this model has a mature young model IETF. We just like to organize them and mix them together to help the multicast service deploy. But something in some part of the draft, we made some such as backup tunnels or something else, because when we talked the issue with our customer, they think it's important. So I also added them into the young model. So we'd like more review on it. If you think it's reasonable or valuable, it's good for us. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So unfortunately, we don't have any more time, but just please, Sandy, take it to the list and get folks to review. Sounds like you're looking for, review of the latest version before going to working group last call. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So if you can stop sharing. All right. Mike, are you ready?
It's
All right, I'm going to there. And Mike, you have 1 minute. However, we have 5 minutes grace period to get to our next class. So you have the rest of the time.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that we take it to the end to see if we really do get kicked off 5 minutes after. I never got that question answered, but we'll see. So hopefully you can see my screen. This presentation has been given in MBONE-D a year or so ago, and also in PIM. We've been focusing on this draft within IPPM working group, IP Performance Measurement Working Group, because it is calling for some modifications to some protocols. And as what happened, we discussed this briefly with Warren, and as what happens oftentimes with OAM related documents, is, especially when it's multicast related, is that there's not much interest or understanding of multicast related technology, so it just kind of gets ignored, and that's kind of where we are with this draft. And so our new strategy is to revisit it within MBONE-D as well as PIM, and we're kind of thinking now, if I can just skip to ahead real quick, this is the very last slide, then I'll go back if we don't get cut off, is that we are looking for adoption in MBONE-D. It may be better in the ops area working group. They don't know much about multicast, so it may be difficult there. So what we are thinking about doing, and we did discuss this when we presented this last time in MBONE-D, is to have a more general problem statement exist in MBONE-D having to do with OAM and multicast, and then have the proposed protocol modifications done in PIM, since as far as I know, that's not something that we do in MBONE-D. So that's kind of our strategy right now. And so that's why we're here. And how you and Greg are both on the call, they understand IPPM related protocols, especially IOM and other protocols, very well. And so, of course, monitoring multicast traffic is important. It's helpful to be able to reconstruct and then visualize that multicast tree using telemetry data, and being able to monitor the performance, troubleshoot, find out where jitter is, where drops are occurring, and things like that. And so conventional OAM techniques are not sufficient, and there are some good on-path telemetry techniques, such as IOAM and postcard-based tree and hybrid two-step that's being done in IPPM. And again, how you and Greg are leading some of those that protocol work. And what the IOM anyway has to do specifically with is adding telemetry data to the packet itself, instead of doing an out-of-band mechanism for telemetry data, operational data. It's put in the packet itself, and so you get real-time information, and you can send that information where you want to do some analysis on it. But the current on-path telemetry techniques do have some flaws for multicast. With OAM, every packet carries the entire data trace, and so there's a lot of redundant data that occurs when you have entire paths, multiple paths from end to end that are being captured and sent to telemetry engines. And so there's got to be some good ways, and we've proposed some to make it so that there isn't that redundancy at wasting bandwidth, particularly when you're adding additional fields to packets, which is what you do with IOAM. And then with something like a postcard-based type tree, there's no branch identifier. So when you're correlating these postcards, and postcards, I'll show you in just a second here. When you correlate them, there's no way to tell when you're correlating where the branches exist. And so we are, again, the objective is to propose some modifications to allow the tree to be correctly reconstructed without unnecessary replication of telemetry information. And so just very quickly, because we're going to just discuss this in PIM in just the next meeting, is there's a couple solutions. One is, if you see in the bottom, there's we're proposing a branch identifier. Each branch adds a branch identifier to the instruction header, and so that you're able to, when you're sending that data, you're able to identify the branch points, and then you can properly reconstruct the tree. And then you can also do so when you correlate the data, and the data contains the entire section, and then you send the data up to a to when you're correlating that data. These are two examples of ways that you can capture and correlate. There's other ways to do so as well, and we mentioned those in the draft. So I mentioned this at the end, the beginning, and this is at the end. And just, if we have time, just wanted to see what people thought about what we're proposing, and if this is the right strategy to have.
Any comments from anyone or any questions? Sorry.
We have no hands, nobody at the mic right now.
Hey,
Jake?
we're not kicked off anyway.
Yeah, let's see
So
how
does-
we can go.
But it sounds
So
good
does
in the chat, and I mean, this does seem valuable. My only question is like, is, you know, what's IPPM going to think? I guess.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's kind of similar situation to point to multipoint drafts happening in Spring, and we've brought those into PIM. The PIM chairs worked with the Spring chairs, and they said, "Yeah, please, PIM, take it. We don't have the time or interest or expertise to deal with it," and so we did. I'm anticipating something similar happening here.
Okay.
Either
So this will be
between-
adopted in PIM, you think?
Well, that's yet to be determined, but I think ideally, in my mind, we would have a problem statement draft being done here in MBONE-D. It's operational related, and it will cover some of the things we mentioned here, and then the protocol modifications being done in PIM.
That sounds reasonable to me. Sure.
Yeah, I think, you know,
I will
being,
lend my vote.
sorry. Yeah, it seems reasonable to do this here. Are you saying that it's going to be a different draft, will be a problem statement? Are you
Yeah.
going to take this draft and turn it into a protocol draft and a problem statement draft?
I think so. I think that's I think that's the case. Yeah. So we'll see what happens in PIM, but I think that would make the most sense to me. We would turn this one draft into two.
Also get confirmation of that in IPPM, or like this?
Yeah, I think what we'll do, and again,
Okay.
I'm just using the example we did with Spring and point to multipoint, is we would kind of discuss this, and right, we're doing it. So right now we'll discuss it in PIM, and then we'll ping the IPPM chairs and tell them what's going on, and this is what we prefer to do. And if they agree, then we'll do it. If the working group decides to bring on the work.
Right.
So I don't really have an action for you right now, Lenny and Greg. I just want to give you maybe a heads up, and when you see an email coming your way, then you'll know what the heck I'm talking about.
Excellent. Thank you. I think we're all just kind of sitting here waiting for it to shut down.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of just want to keep talking, but we're almost 10 minutes in and we're still going strong, so that's good.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
It's
Well,
like
we should
Selman.
punt and give the resources up. Any other questions?
Thanks for your time.
And of course, a plug for PIM. Everybody, 20 minutes from now, PIM working group is up next, and we'll continue the multicast fun there.
Take your nap, and we'll see you in 20. Anyone got the blue sheets? With the blue sheets up front.
All right. Well, and anybody else have any other comments? Anything else they want to bring up, or otherwise, I think we can close MBONE for today.
It's a quiet room, Lenny.
Yeah, I guess so. It's fuller than I expected, though, for the middle of the night.
That's true.
We do have somebody at the mic. Yushang? Xiaoshang?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, where is the blue sheet? Sorry, I haven't heard it clearly.
It's magic. It happens automatic because you signed in. You're on the sheet.
Ah, okay, great.
I was just being
Thank you.
facetious. All right.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. All right. So, Lenny, I think we should just shut this down rather than just wait for it to kill us because they do need resources.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. You guys take care. See you in PIM. Cheers.